BFM 89.9, the business station.
We are speaking to Dato Dr. Zaki Morad, Chairman of the Board of Directors at the National Kidney Foundation and consultant nephrologist on addressing the organ supply crisis in Malaysia. It was also pointed out that most of the pledges come from the younger generation, particularly those aged between 21 and 30. Now, should there be more awareness drives for people of the different age groups, probably the older generation?
Yes, I think having organ donation drive in general like that may not be as effective as targeting to special groups. We could go to the younger ones, as you mentioned, or even the senior ones, those working in big corporations, in the government, where they may get information more easily than those from the rest of the public. So I think targeted type of campaign may actually help. And I might add here, the medical personnel, I'm not just talking about doctors, nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists, also need to be educated on this. They become the front line and can propagate the message even better.
Effective January this year, the Health Ministry has said that there will be no free medication locally for patients who go overseas for transplants, and this is a measure to stop or to discourage people from going overseas for getting treatment from unauthorized hospitals without approval from the ministry. Now, do you think that this measure will actually deter Malaysians from seeking treatment abroad?
Well, I can understand the reasoning behind the Ministry of Health's recent initiative about this. The reason is the Ministry has signed up with WHO not to support this. So by supporting patients who come back from these countries who had kidney transplant from buying the organs from these countries, we may be seen as condoning this type of actions. Whether it will halt, I'm not too sure. For those who wanted to go and they are desperate to go, they will still go. And some of them will say, I will deal with the problem but not getting enough money for drugs a bit later. So I think it may dent the program a bit, but it may not stop people from going.
Observers are pointing out that about half of 25,000 patients registered with the National Renal Registry have been filtered out from the kidney transplant waiting list as they have not been deemed suitable for transplants, either due to age or having life-threatening diseases. Now, taking into account that they are left with no options and could be desperate for a way out, is it fair for the government to impose such hard measures on them?
Well, if you look just at kidney failure, I'm not talking about heart failure or liver failure where there's no other alternative except a transplant. But for a kidney patient, there is an alternative, and that is dialysis. So there are people who survive on dialysis for 20, 25 years, and therefore there is an option. So one can argue that if you stop people from going to get a transplant, you're not necessarily causing them to die, because there's got an alternative. But when it comes to heart and liver failure, there's a different issue altogether.
The Health DG has previously said that the Ministry of Health was in the process of streamlining some standard operating procedures in the procurement of organs and tissues from deceased donors. To your knowledge, what are the issues in the procurement from deceased donors, and what areas could the Ministry be looking at improving?
Well, basically, it's the whole process. It's just trying to refine it and making it more to facilitate, to make it faster. When someone dies, sometimes the process of getting consent may take some time, and the process of supporting the person who dies while waiting to remove organs from him, there may be some hiccups there. So these are all the processes they're looking at. And then after an organ has been removed, the storage of the organs and the transport of the organs from one place to another. For instance, someone in Sarawak may die and be an organ donor. Then we must make sure that the organs are flown in very quickly to Kuala Lumpur or elsewhere where the transplant is being done. So they are mainly logistical problems, and also problems of procedures and approvals, that kind of thing. So a lot of bureaucracy has to be ironed out and money put into supporting the process and the facilities as well.
There have been some news reports that Sabah has the highest number of kidney patients that are unaddressed and have the higher chance of not getting any treatment when it comes to transplants. How true is this assertion that different states are sidelined, and the chances of survival for kidney patients very much depend on where your location is?
Right. The data that's been collected by the National Renal Registry over the last 18 years do show that some states are underprovided in terms of dialysis treatment. For instance, if you look at the west coast of Peninsular Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Seremban, Melaka, the treatment rate is almost twice as high as that in Sabah, Sarawak, and also better than in Kelantan, Pahang, Terengganu, and so on. So where this is so is perhaps in Sabah and Sarawak, especially in Sabah, the geography of the land plays an important role. People live in small communities outside the big towns, and if they got kidney failure, it's difficult for them to come for treatment. And then sometimes ignorance, people may feel that I've got kidney failure, there's no hope for me, and they don't come forward for treatment. Having said so, there's been many attempts by the government especially, but people like us in National Kidney Foundation are now putting our resources and money in this type of areas to develop new dialysis centers to help the people in Sabah, Sarawak, Kelantan, and so on.
Moving forward, what kind of measures by the government can be taken to, further improve the numbers of organ donations and organ supply?
All right. There are a number of issues that we have discussed. A group of people interested in this area have discussed. Apart from the usual approaches of increasing awareness through all the media that we have, both the TV and newspapers, which has been done. Secondly, is to focus on some groups of people who may, from what we know from the statistics, may not be that likely to be organ donors. So, focusing on small groups. Thirdly, what we have been looking at also has been for the government to provide some financial reimbursement to those who donate kidneys. We are talking about cadaveric donors, Many countries have done so. This is not the same as buying organs. You don't pay for the organs, you don't value the organ. But if someone has decided to give an organ and he dies, and the family has to bear a certain cost, in fact, we probably have to keep him in the hospital for a day or two longer because while waiting for the organs to be removed. And that cost is borne by the family presently. So among the suggestions that people are looking at to increase organ donation rate is to get government to give a financial reimbursement for funeral costs or for costs of staying in the hospital. And that has been positively received by the Minister of Health, but it's not been implemented fully yet.
Thanks for speaking with us. Dato Dr. Zaki Morad, Chairman of the Board of Directors at the National Kidney Foundation and consultant nephrologist on addressing the organ supply crisis in Malaysia. I'm Kathleen Tan for Current Affairs, and you're listening to BFM 89.9, the business station.
BFM 89.9, the business station.